Saying no can be challenging, especially when we're conditioned to please others and avoid conflict. Yet, establishing boundaries and knowing when and how to say no is crucial for maintaining mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Boundaries not only protect our time and energy, but also ensure that our relationships remain healthy and respectful. Here's why it's important to set boundaries and say no, along with 5 effective strategies to help you do so with confidence. Why setting boundaries and saying no is important. Boundaries are essential for preserving your well-being. Without them, you risk feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, or resentful toward those who continuously push your limits. People often struggle with saying no because they fear disappointing others, being labeled as selfish, or damaging relationships. However, saying yes too often, especially when it goes against your own needs or values, can lead to burnout, frustration, and a diminished sense of self-worth. 5 strategies for setting boundaries. Now that you understand why boundaries are crucial, let's explore 5 practical strategies to help you say no and set boundaries like a pro. 1. Identify your limits. Before you can set boundaries, you need to be clear about what your limits are. Ask yourself, what are my non-negotiables? What drains my energy or makes me feel uncomfortable? For example, you might realize that working late every day interferes with your personal life or that you feel overwhelmed when people drop by unannounced. Once you identify your limits, it becomes easier to recognize when someone is crossing them. Be honest with yourself about how much time, energy, and emotional bandwidth you have to offer. Understanding your own boundaries is the first step toward enforcing them. 2. Communicate clearly and assertively. Once you've identified your boundaries, you need to communicate them clearly to others. Assertiveness means expressing your thoughts and needs directly and respectfully without being passive or aggressive. For example, instead of saying, "I think I'm too busy," you could say, "I have other commitments, so I won't be able to help with that." Clear communication leaves little room for misunderstanding. Practice saying no in a firm but polite manner. You don't need to over-explain or justify your reasons. A simple, "No, I can't commit to that right now," is often enough. 3. Start small. If you're not used to setting boundaries, it can feel intimidating at first. Start by practicing in low-stakes situations where the consequences of saying no are minimal. For example, you might decline an invitation to a casual get-together or set a boundary with a colleague who frequently interrupts you during work. As you gain confidence, you can begin applying these skills in more challenging situations. Remember that setting boundaries is a skill that improves with practice, so take small steps until you feel more comfortable. 4. Use I statements. Using I statements helps you take ownership of your feelings and needs without sounding accusatory or confrontational. For example, instead of saying, "You're always asking me to do extra work," try saying, "I feel overwhelmed when I'm asked to take on additional tasks because it affects my ability to complete my other responsibilities." This type of language helps prevent the other person from becoming defensive and encourages a more constructive conversation. It shifts the focus from blame to your own experience, making it easier to maintain a respectful dialogue. 5. Learn to manage guilt. One of the biggest hurdles to setting boundaries is guilt. You may feel bad for saying no, especially if you've been a people pleaser for most of your life. However, it's important to remember that setting boundaries is not selfish. It's a form of self-care. You have the right to prioritize your own needs, and saying no doesn't mean you're neglecting others. Remember, saying no is not about being difficult or selfish. It's about valuing your own needs and well-being. As you become more skilled at setting boundaries, you'll find that your relationships improve, your stress levels decrease, and you gain greater control over your life. If you found this video informative, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more content.